Hello and welcome to another 2 Network match report with me, Adam. It's finished at St James's Park, it's finished Newcastle United 2, Arsenal 1. What a victory and what a performance in that second half to seal the points. It's a 4th straight win at home in the Premier League. We're now very securely in 10th. I think we're now 3 points out of Bournemouth in 11th, with a game in hand on them as well. We have a game in hand on Everton, who are just above us as well, and we play them next at Goodison, so that's going to be amazing. But before I get into the match analysis, I was a bit bored yesterday and was playing in the garden with my son, and we combined to create an absolutely fantastic trick shot. Tell me what you think. What can I say? Still got it. But anyway, enough of the hilarity there. What a day it's been. You know, picture the scene, okay? So the transfer window in summer slammed shut. We didn't get half of the players that we wanted to, that Rafa Benitez wanted. The mood is low. Relegation looms. Everyone thinking, well, you know, this is going to be a slog this season. It's going to be a long, hard season. If someone in that moment had told me that by April we'll have beaten not only Man United at home, Arsenal at home as well, within a couple of months of each other, and be sort of very safely in the top half of the table, I mean, you would absolutely slap that person across the face, wouldn't you? Because it just seemed absolutely impossible. But it was just remarkable. I mean, honestly, are you still buzzing as much as I am? Because it's been a couple of hours since full time, and I'm still just, the adrenaline going through my veins. It's unbelievable. The atmosphere today at St James's Park. It was loud. It was raucous. I mean, Rafa Benitez talked this week about wanting, you know, he doesn't want the crowd to feel relaxed, and you know, he saw the impact that the crowd's had over the last few, you know, the last couple of months, even in the crucial wins at home against Man United, Huddersfield, Southampton, and now Arsenal. He didn't want us as a crowd, as a stadium, to lose the intensity that I mean, we used to have this kind of intense crowd years ago, but we've been bereft since we had very uninspiring managers, and since we've had a very uninspiring owner in charge of the club as well. But what Rafa Benitez has done on a shoestring, in a relative shoestring in the wider context of Premier League money and tens of millions being splashed around by pretty much everyone except Newcastle. And he knew how powerful that would be, the atmosphere, and you know, on top of what is and has been a very well drilled side since the turn of the year, what has been a team very difficult to break down and very solid and playing within their means, but playing effectively within their means. I mean, what we saw today was another extremely efficient performance. So by half time, it was 1-1. We'd had only 29% of the possession. So Arsenal had 71% possession at half time. Right? They'd had 10 shots, we'd had 3. Both teams had 3 shots on target. So Arsenal in the first half, they're very wasteful. I mean, Wenger's right in his post-match analysis to suggest that it could have been over by half time, and I mean, whereas I disagree with the fact that it would have been over by half time, even if they had scored it, say 2. I still disagree that we wouldn't have been in with a shout, just because of where we've come from the last sort of couple of months, and the performances that we've churned out, and the fight and the spirit and the belief that is possessed within this humble squad, this humble team that has been. There's not a lot of money being spent on, but Rafa is an absolute magician. He's a wizard, and he's created this team bigger than the sum of its parts. But before Arsenal scored today, I mean, we put out exactly the same side as you might well imagine. Slimani was the only change. You see, he was ineligible against Leicester, his parent club, but he returned to the bench today. No Atsu on the bench, but there was Hosselu and Slimani. So you know, Rafa Benitez was looking for points today. Absolutely, he was talking all week about getting 40 as his target for survival, whereas most people had probably made their mind up. I mean, if you watch these or listen to these match reports, I said after the Huddersfield game that's us safe. Leicester was a surprise victory, and that's almost definitely safe. Now we have 41 points, and we're sitting in 10th. 41 points. Rafa can now concede that we're safe. It's survival, and we can look ahead to the summer and hope that either Mike Ashley's going to put up or Mike Ashley's going to sell, and a new owner will come in and back what will be one of the best managers Newcastle have ever had in their history. And I don't say that with embellishment, because of it's his connection with the fans, it's the way he's turned around a club in crisis, it's the way that he performs miracles with very little resource, and he's just absolutely remarkable. He's a huge contender for Manager of the Year, based on, I mean, let's take it back to what media predictions would have been. Not one. Even the Newcastle biased journalists and football writers would not have suggested Newcastle be 10th at this point in the season. No chance. And a lot of us fans wouldn't have thought so. Even our wildest dreams, we wouldn't. But here we are. We're safe, and we can enjoy it. And that's what happened today. The fact that we've done the hard work against Southampton, against Huddersfield, and then again at Leicester, which was a huge away result for us against what has been largely a very good side this season. We went into the game today against Arsenal with, I wouldn't say it was relaxed, but we could enjoy it. It was a really sunny day today. It's been absolutely just lush to sit outside and watch your football team and know that even if we lost today, it's sort of a free pass with Arsenal, and you think, well, they're just a very good side, they've got a lot of players. Now, Arsenal's lineup, it might be argued second string, because they obviously played in the Europa League in Russia on Thursday, a few days before. So Ozil wasn't in the team, Ramsey wasn't in the team, Koscielny wasn't in the team, Bellerin wasn't in the team. They started with a young guy in attacking centre midfield. His name escapes me. He's number 69 though. I do remember that. I'll just get his name now because it's going to annoy me if I don't remember his name. And that player's name was Joe Willock. So number 69. Brave. But you know, you say, is it an Arsenal second string? No. Because when you have Lacazette and when you've got Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, both players cost them upwards of 100 million, 110 million it probably was. When you've got players like Iwobi, who's a very, very capable attacking midfielder. You've got Xhaka and you've got El Neni, who are internationals in their own right. That's not a second string side. It's just a slightly rotated team. So I won't have it that was a second string Arsenal side, because look at the talent that they had. Yet they couldn't match the intensity, certainly in that second half, and the stability that Newcastle. It was the belief. Let's look at the goal. So the first goal, Arsenal's goal. What we've been used to in the last few games is teams find it very, very difficult to get in behind Newcastle, find it difficult to find space because we're compact, we're two banks of fours, we've mentioned on these videos numerous times. But what it took was, essentially, it was route one, it was very direct, it was a long ball up from Mustafi, who had a bit of a torrid time last week, but we'll get onto that in a little bit. And he launched a ball up towards Aubameyang, who was sort of playing on the wide left, and he controls it very well, and he's on the edge of the box, and Yedlin's not really near him, and he crosses a ball in. Now, even at the point that he crosses it, it's more of him anticipating where Lacazette might be. It wasn't that he spotted him. Lacazette then had to start in. It was back post and stretch, and the technique to be able to direct that goalwards on the stretch is really impressive. And that was 1-0, and that was Lacazette, and it just shows the quality. And we saw that a few times in the first half. Just Arsenal's ability to, create a very dangerous attacking chance simply by 2 or 3 very incisive passes, and they were able to play triangles in the movement, and we did struggle to contain them in the first half. And as much as I wouldn't say that they deserved the lead at that point, because at that point, after 14 minutes, very little had actually happened in the game. It was a lot of battles in the middle third, and as I noticed in the first half, we were allowing their midfield quite a lot of space and time, and there was a bit of a gap between our midfielders and our strikers, which El Neni and Xhaka, I guess, were trying to dictate from. But it was a mistake by Mo Diarmi, who let in Lacazette in the first half as well, and he tried to. I thought he was just going to blast it. There was nobody seemingly closing him down, and he basically tried to pass to Willock, who ended up sort of screwing this chance up, and it just went wide. So that was a bit of a let-off, and maybe that's the kind of extra goal that Arsene Wenger was alluding to as well. But there was something fantastic after we actually conceded, in that the whole stadium started chanting for Newcastle. The atmosphere was really, really excellent today. It was fantastic. It was everyone was getting involved, all corners of the stadium. But the fact that immediately after we conceded, there was no grumbles, there were no sighs, there were no swearing or cursing. No, it was clap your hands and start chanting for Rafa and the boys. And that's what Rafa was talking about, the impact that a happy crowd can have. We haven't had this for years, because we've never really had, before Rafa, we hadn't had anybody since Bobby who we could really get behind, who we thought, well, he's a credible manager because he has ideas that I can't, he has brilliant ideas far beyond my knowledge. With Pardew and Carver and McLaren, you just think, well, they're just making it up as they go along, and I still believe that now. And I think Pardew has absolutely been found out. McLaren can't get himself a job either. Less said about Carver the better, but what we're seeing is somebody who in charge, who is intelligent, and he does his homework, and he's meticulous in his preparation, and his detail, his eye for detail is just phenomenal. Like, you wouldn't believe. He's an absolute geek, Rafa Benitez, for the football detail. But you know what? That's what gets him marginal gains, and that's why he's able to work and get the best out of players, to instill them with confidence. And this is what we saw in this performance today. To go a goal down against a top 6 side. It's weird to call them a top 6 side, because Arsenal were always a top 4 side, but they have slipped under Wenger, but they're still a very, very capable outfit. Of course they are. So to go goal down and for the crowd to immediately, instinctively, just start clapping and chanting was just exactly what we needed. And what happened after that was we started trying to exploit their weaknesses. Now, one of their weaknesses that I noticed by watching the game is that it was largely Shelvey. Shelvey just kept playing these long balls over the top. Now, Shelvey dropping long balls in over the top of the defence to Gale used to happen all the time in the Championship last season. It was the hallmark. It was one of the signature moves of how we used to score a lot of goals, and why Dwight Gale got upwards of 20 goals or so in the Championship. And we were doing it again today. So Shelvey would pick the ball up, and most teams, who wanted to do that and just kick a ball up high, and it gains territory, it gives the defence a breathing, and it allows you to resettle. But when you've got Jonjo Shelvey doing that, it's not a lump. It's no longer a lump. What Jonjo Shelvey does is that he hooks it high, but it's a very meticulously accurate ball. It's very precise, it's very purposeful, and Dwight Gale was able to get him behind the defence and latching onto a couple of these balls. Now, shortly before we scored, Gale's making his off the ball runs today were absolutely fantastic, and it caused Holding and Mustafi endless problems, untold problems. They didn't know how to deal with the high balls, and with the accuracy of Shelvey, I mean, he was able to find Gale a lot more. Now, sometimes Gale gets the ball and he doesn't really know what to do with it, and he just hasn't got that quality that you saw in the last week or so. Dele Alli playing away, and it was a ball over the top. Dele Alli, one touch, finish in off the post, and that's like world class. That we don't have. Dwight Gale isn't of that standard, so when he gets played in like that, he has to play within his means. Now, it means that sometimes he gets frustrated, he might not be able to lay the ball off, and maybe the defender is a bit too strong for him because he's a bit lightweight, so it doesn't always lead to a chance or even get a shot on target, like just get a shot away. So that had happened once before, but then we did it the second time. And this time, Gale's got a bit of nous about him, and he's made another excellent run. It's another excellent but measured punt from Jonjo Shelvey to find him. And what he does is very calmly just lays the ball off to Yedlin, who's been obviously pelting down that right wing to support. Now, at this point, Perez is on the edge of the box, and Mustafi's near post. Yedlin again. Similarly to the Lacazette goal, it was a cross that was not so much aimed at that person, but more speculative into space in the hope that that person would get there, and that's exactly what happened. We saw last week in the Arsenal-Southampton game where Mustafi was caught basically sleeping at the near post. He expected Petr Cech to come for it. There was a breakdown of communication there, and Shane Long, very quick player, was able to nick in the near post from across from the right wing. He was able to nick in and get a goal from across the face of the goal into the opposite corner. Past Cech, and all the Arsenal defenders are just looking around. They're just looking at each other. Who was supposed to pick him up? Now, that was a weakness that Rafa Benitez 100% would have looked at, would have spotted it, and would have had a word in the ear of his forwards to say, Mustafi fell asleep last week at the near post, so if you got the opportunity to do so, dart across the front of him, dart across to the near post and try and nick in. And that's exactly how Jose Perez scored today. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Rafa had a big hand in that, and he was able to pass on that wisdom that he spotted, this weakness that he spotted last week. Because I mean, average people like you and me could have seen that, would have seen that mistake last week. So being able to bring it in and apply it to a real life match would be a very, very Rafa Benitez kind of thing to do. So he lays it off to Yedlin. Yedlin just plays a very straight ball, just across, a very square ball across, and Jose Perez just nicks in, and he kind of gets a hook on the ball, and he just sort of hooks it and whips it with his instep on his right foot, and it just has so much spin, and he manages to just steal it in. I'm sure you've seen the goal now already of Cech's near post, and suddenly once again for the second week running, Cech and Mustafi are looking at each other, just thinking, well, whose fault is that? Meanwhile, Perez doesn't care. He's away celebrating, and the whole crowd, and suddenly, from a position of we might lose this one because they've taken the lead, Arsenal, to 1-1, we're back in it, and guess what? I think we can spot a couple of weaknesses in their back line, and from that point onwards, and we kept doing the same thing. We kept looking for balls over the top because they absolutely couldn't deal with it. Now Holding and Mustafi are, you know, fairly big units themselves, and you'd think, well, big lads, they'll be able to deal with a few high balls, with a few headers, and you know, it's not like Gale and Perez are necessarily going to be battling for them from an aerial perspective, but it was the accuracy of the Shelvey balls meant that it was landing at Gale's feet, which put us in a much better position. Now, there was a shout for a handball off Lascelles from an Aubameyang shot in the first half that could have easily been a penalty. For me, I've seen it back. Haven't been to the game. I've watched the highlights back quickly before doing the video, and I think it's very innocuous. I think his arm is. It could be construed to be in an unnatural position, but you've seen them given. But there didn't seem to be too many protestations from the Arsenal players at all. I think it's just one of those. It could have been given, but it wasn't. And if other people think that we got away with one, well, there's plenty of decisions that haven't gone our way this season. So I think we've been chalking them up. Don't worry. Now, there was a possible stamp from Kennedy as well. Now, this was over next to the dugout, and he's sort of gone to kind of stamp on the ball with his studs. It slipped off the top of the ball. Now, you know, in his favour, he definitely intends to try and challenge for the ball. Unlike, say, Marcus Alonso yesterday, where he just deliberately put his studs down the back of Shane Long. So there was a difference in intent there, but that's not to say that his ball, you know, his foot didn't sort of cascade off the ball and then make contact with the Arsenal player. Most tellingly, that it was right next to the dugouts, and I didn't see the Arsenal coaching staff and Arsene Wenger be up in arms about it. They weren't. Again, the protestations were quite muted. So I think had they remonstrated quite passionately, then the referee might have seen it in a different way, and there might have been a bit more chance of him possibly getting a red or a yellow. But nothing. He might have got a yellow. I don't think he did, and he got away with one. So you could argue that maybe Newcastle were slightly lucky to have got away with a couple there in the first half, and I think Rafa probably wouldn't have been pleased with the amount of space we were giving, certainly Aubameyang on that left wing, and allowing them to dominate. As much as they did dominate, though, like I said, we would after that first half, we were just more efficient with it. You know, they had 2/3 of the possession, more than 2/3 of the possession. They had 10 shots. We only had 3, but all of our 3 were on target. And we went in 1-1 level. So we've not seen a lot of the ball. We haven't had that many shots in comparison to Arsenal. But guess what? We're level pegging at half time. And I think Rafa would be thinking, well, if we just get our back line in order again, like we've seen in the last few games, we're very, very capable. Let's just assertively remind the team how they can defend as a unit. Lejeune and Dummett and Lascelles and Yedlin and Dubravka, and then Diarmi, who was absolutely everywhere today, by the way, protecting that back line, and even Shelvey was getting stuck in an aggressive but fair way today, and I think, you know, Shelvey put himself in the spotlight this week by talking about World Cup ambitions and that his disciplinary problems were behind him. And I tell you what, he's not really a player. Shelvey of old wouldn't have wanted to put himself in the spotlight in that way. But you know, TV cameras, huge game, live on Sky, beamed all around the world. He did not do his World Cup places any harm today, and neither did Jamal Lascelles. My favourite Jamal Lascelles moment, by the way, today was when I think it was a bit in the second half where, like I said, was trying to run through, and Lascelles just dealt with the ball, and like Lacazette he just ran into him and bounced off him like he just ran into a brick wall. It was fantastic. Just shows the strength of Lascelles and just how much of a unit he is and how muscular. It was brilliant. But what happened when we came out in the second half? You know, Perez had been fantastic. Obviously, he got the goal, but what I'd seen is he continued these little mazy dribbles that he does. So I was really impressed with Dwight Gale's runs off the ball, but then I was really impressed with Jose Perez's dribbles on the ball, his runs with the ball, and he caused a lot of problems. There was a time in the first half where he kind of got in behind and tried to pull it back, and he did fantastically to sort of manipulate this chance out of seemingly nothing really. But when we've got the quality of Kennedy on the wings, and Ritchie was putting in a hell of a shift as well, and it's just all the same characteristics of what we've seen of this team over the last couple of months. We got the organisation at the back again. We got, to the point that Arsenal didn't manage a shot on target in the second half. They had 3 at half time, and they had 3 by full time as well. So whatever's happened at half time, we shored up at the back, but then we also had the belief to go on and win it, because we're thinking, well, we have parity here. They're wasteful. They're being profligate up front, Arsenal, in the final third, despite the talent that they had out. Willock came off for Welbeck. So now you've got Welbeck, who's been in fantastic form. He scored last weekend. He scored in midweek as well. So he's coming into a bit of a purple patch. And he would have only been off the bench because he was being rested, obviously, after being overexerted. So Willock comes off, Welbeck comes on, and almost immediately, so Paul Dummett has a throw-in down the left-hand side, near where I'm sat on the east stand at the halfway line. Aims for Slimani, who's come on for Dwight Gale at this point. So Dwight Gale's run himself into the ground. He's just been absolutely fantastic, but didn't really get much of a chance at goal. But I guess with Slimani being fully fit now, he was ineligible last week, he came on. So Dummett's gone named for his head, because now we have that option. We have a target man, but he's quite mobile, as I'll go on to explain. The ball gets then headed back. The ball gets nodded on and gets headed sort of up in the air by one of the Arsenal centre-backs. And none of the Arsenal centre-backs or defenders seem to want to actually deal with this ball. Slimani thinks, well, I'm having that. And you see him, and he just goes for it. And the determination to just sort of get a really powerful header on and generate sort of power and energy, kinetic energy through the ball with his neck muscles. He aims for Perez, who's on the edge of the box, and Perez does like a little flick to the side. It's almost like the ball hardly changes trajectory. It was almost a very slight flick, but it's a definite flick. And Ritchie's just tearing up, and he takes one touch and just fires it with his right foot back across Czech, and it's an absolutely incredible finish. It's a great finish, and it's a great goal as well. And it's 2-1, and the celebrations are just mental, and I honestly couldn't believe that we managed to turn it around after the fact that we sort of got out of jail a bit in the first half. And suddenly, you couldn't see Arsenal getting back into it, because we were playing with such gusto and such belief and confidence that you think that they're not going to get past this. Diarmi and Shelvey in the centre of midfield were completely overrunning Xhaka and El Neni, who were unable to have as much of an impact in play, despite having twice the amount of possession that we had today. So it was absolutely fantastic to see us go ahead. And then you've got, just to talk about Islam Slimani. So it was the first time I'd probably seen him in the flesh. Getting more than 10 minutes or 5 minutes here and there. And if you noticed, so Islam Slimani had a really big hand in Ritchie's goal, because his header found Perez, who flicked it for Ritchie to go. And against Huddersfield as well, Perez. Sorry, I'm mixing up my words here. Against Huddersfield, Slimani goes up to challenge the Huddersfield goalkeeper, who then, because he's under pressure from Slimani, from that dink to the back post, palms it, falls to Kennedy, composure, passes it to Perez, 1-0. Islam Slimani has the nous to stay behind the goal line, so he's not offside. So he's hardly played any minutes for Newcastle, Slimani, yet he's been involved in 2 match-winning goals, quite significant hands in match-winning goals, which is fantastic. And what I saw was a player who is a target man, but who is very mobile and actually has a bit of pace about him as well once he gets going. And he was trying to take on the Arsenal defenders. Now, without Bellerin in the side, yes, they're not, and without Koscielny, they're not as quick. So he kind of wanted to exploit that, and he was taking players on, and he was shrugging them off, and he was really holding the ball up well and very intelligent playing. And, you know, he looked so determined today, and he looked like a player who was fighting for a permanent contract in Newcastle United. You look at what Kennedy's done over the last couple of months, you look at what Dubravka's done since he came in, and you look at now Slimani and his performance today, in the 20-25 minutes or whatever that we saw of him. And we saw somebody who's seen what we are as a club, what the stadium's like, the fact that we're turning over the likes of Man United, the likes of Arsenal, and he wants to be a part. He wants to be a part of this club, and you could absolutely tell that. And it was a really fighting, determined performance from Slimani. And what I absolutely loved about him, which you might not have been able to pick up on the TV if you weren't there at the game today, was the fact that he was barking orders at the players around him, notably Kennedy. So Kennedy, from about the 70th minute, who seems to have been taken off around the 60-70 minute mark pretty much every game he's played, because he just gets absolutely knackered. Always puts in a shift, but he's just knackered. But today, it was almost like Rafa Benitez was trolling him, because he took off, I think he basically took off everyone else around him. So he took off Gil for Slimani, he took off Perez for Hosselu, who came on, so two big men up front. And then he took Ritchie off for Jacob Murphy in the last few minutes. And it was almost like Rafa Benitez trolling Kennedy to say, right, I'm actually going to bloody get 90 minutes out of you. You're a professional athlete, deal with it. Because he was definitely angling for it, Kennedy. He was knackered. But what was brilliant is that Slimani was kind of shouting at Kennedy and telling him what he should be doing and where he should be going, and kind of, he just was geeing him up from the opposite side. So if Kennedy was in the second half, was far away, was on the opposite side to the opposite touchline to where the dugouts were. But Slimani was almost like an extension of Lascelles and an extension of Rafa Benitez, in that he's one of the most experienced players in that squad, which is largely young and inexperienced in the top flight. Slimani's kind of played Champions League football. He's played in top flights all over the place. So he was passing on his wisdom and his authority and his that experience to a younger player. Kennedy was 22, and it was fantastic to see a player who had barely played minutes for this football club, yet he was so committed today to the fact that he was actually bawling at other players to tell them what to do, and that was just fantastic. And there's anecdotal evidence that that Dubravka is very vocal as well. And the fact that you've just got a few more leaders, so it's not all on Lascelles' shoulders, that actually were covered as a spine. So you think of the spine of like Dubravka, Lascelles, Shelvey, and quietly Diame as well, but also Slimani in the final third as well. We've got the makings of a spine there, and that's absolutely fantastic. And I was very encouraged by what I saw from Slimani today. And if he can. He's pushing for a start against Everton, and maybe I'd like to see him at least get a couple of starts before the end of the season, especially now that we're sort of safe. And I'd like to see really what he's made of, and if he can bang in a couple of goals, because I think if he can get a couple of goals before the end of the season, there might be a shout that he wants to join us permanently, and we would want to buy him for it would be a lot less than the 29 million that Leicester paid for him. That's for certain, given that he's a bit older now and that they seemingly don't want him. So that was absolutely great to see. But I just think, to get back to, we just caused them problems. We made them misplaced passes, and there were slips and just a lot of errors, and we just exploited their weaknesses. We identified their weaknesses, we exploited them, and in the end, we stat-wise maybe not worthy of the win. But actually, if you were there watching it, we were just better. We were more efficient, and it's this theme of Rafa Benitez's side that we're efficient. He concedes that we haven't got the players to be able to pass and keep possession. Okay, so what's the next best thing? Don't have possession, but still try and create as many chances as you might with possession. Just be very direct when you do have the ball, and be effective and efficient. And that's exactly what we were today. Once again, it's he's got a real flow, and we've got a real consistency in the side now with the team he picks, with the way we play. Yes, we might have slipped a bit in the first half, but certainly the second half we got our mojo back, and we saw that. And Slimani again played through a very pagid Kennedy, who was bearing down on goal, and a great save and challenge from Mustafi. Basically looped up, it beat Czech all hands down, and it hit the bar. So we were very, very lucky not to get a third. And I mean, I think it would have raised the roof had Kennedy got a clean strike in and not and it just burst the net. So it's just what a day. And like, you know, a note on Diarmi as well, who I thought was really just absolutely everywhere today. I really liked. There was a moment in the 89th minute where they'd had a free kick on the left hand side, and you're thinking, all right, what's going to happen here? There was a point where Maitland-Niles was trying to get the ball inside. He was on the inside of the box at the touchline, and Diarmi kind of stepped across him to shield the ball out, to shadow the ball out for a goal kick. But the way he stepped across it, you're thinking, oh, that he could have mistimed that. And I honestly think that the Diarmi of like 6 months ago would have just gone in horribly recklessly there, fouled Maitland-Niles in what was just seemingly a very innocuous challenge, and we would have drawn the game from. They might have equalised from the penalty spot, and then everyone gets sort of disheartened that we didn't, and we've given away a very easy goal. But actually, the Diarmi of 2018 is just fantastic, and he has the confidence in his ability to not foul there, to use his strength, to use his experience, shield the ball out, and it's a goal kick, and it buys us a few more minutes. So that for me epitomised the change and transition that we've seen in Diarmi this season, and how important he is in that midfield to allow Shelvey to unlock Shelvey and allow Shelvey to spray the ball around. And him and Lascelles certainly didn't do their World Cup claims any harm today at all. It was just a fantastic day. It was amazing to be there. Absolutely cracking atmosphere. It was so loud. The crowd was screaming, was so loud. It was absolutely class. And you know, you look at how important Shelvey is to a team like this, and you know, you look at Shelvey now as he's a key player in what is now a successful and pretty good top half side, which is Newcastle United. And then you look at the other midfielders that have been called up for England: Lewis Cook at Bournemouth, Jake Livermore of a relegated West Brom, although they've just beaten Man United today to give Man City the league. But you know, the likes of Livermore and Lewis Cook, like that, are kind of nothing players in very mediocre sides. And you look at Shelvey, who's an important cog in the way that we play, and you know, he's put his money where his mouth is, and he seemingly has put those disciplinary problems behind him. Let's not pretend that they might not resurface given changes in environment and atmosphere and circumstance, but he put in strong tackles today. He's working hard, aggressive, but in a very channeled, fair way. He's not being petulant. He's just doing his job, and he's playing very well. And with that passing range, you think that it would be absolutely crazy that it, you know, today he made El Neni and Granit Xhaka, just him and Diarmi just made their midfield pairing look very average, who are both bona fide internationals in their own right. And you look at Shelvey, who never really got a sniff for England. You've got Diarmi, who's now retired from international football. And you just think, well, what right do our guys have to run the game? Even though they didn't really have that possession, when they did have possession, they did so much more than El Neni and Xhaka. And it's just, maybe Arsenal didn't show up today, but we didn't show up in the first half. It was just very wasteful, Arsenal. But what a day! The fact, you know, 4 straight home wins back to back. I can't get over how good that is. And now we go into the Everton game, and you know, we're 1 point behind Everton with a game in hand, and that, you know, we play them next. So there's a very real chance. And Leicester are only 2 points behind, and Leicester, you know, they just got beat off Burnley, they got beat off us, so they're on a losing streak as well. And Everton are a bit shifty, they only scraped a draw against Swansea. So And Allardyce is obviously, well, there's a lot of problems there. I don't expect Allardyce to be there next season. So there's a real chance for us to just push on and just keep going and see how far we can take this team. And it makes me really excited for the summer. I mean, with the caveat of Mike Ashley still currently in charge of the football club, you don't know what's going to happen. But if Rafa's even backed a little bit, you're going to believe we're going to push on. When he's got the authority to bring in his players, so his players that he brought in, Dubravka, Kennedy and Slimani to a lesser extent in the point I'm about to make, but they've transformed our season, and getting the most out of Diarmi is like a new signing, you know. It's and getting Shelvey head down and playing at the best of his ability. This is all Rafa Benitez, and he's amazing, and I love him, and I love our club, absolutely love our club. And it's days like today, in the sunshine, watching your team turn over a top 6 side. It's a joy, and I absolutely, I'm still very, very excited and buzzing over today's result, and it's not going to end. And Sunderland are on the brink of going down to League One, which, sorry, but I find that hilarious. And the longer we don't have to play a derby against them, the better, because I can't stand derby games, because it adds stigma to what would otherwise be quite a winnable fixture. So see you later, Sunderland. Newcastle will be sitting pretty in the top half. I'm absolutely sure of that. And onwards and upwards, and we'll see what we can do next season. But wow, what a run and what an afternoon today's been. Hope you've enjoyed it. I've been Adam. This has been another Toon Network Match Report. Please subscribe on YouTube and get your comments in below. I absolutely love reading them and love to get the interaction going. I'm on Twitter at The Toon Network and Facebook The Toon Network 1892. And if you are a podcast subscriber to these videos, we're on SoundCloud and we're on iTunes as well. So make sure you subscribe. Please share with all your friends as well. Let them know if you enjoyed the video. Please tell them about it. Forward them the link. Because I'd love to get some more subscribers, obviously. So hit subscribe and we'll see you after the Everton game. Cheers. Bye-bye.